Hi, welcome to our 10 question series. Today I'm joined by Aisling Byrne from New Wardrobe. Thank you for joining, Aisling.
Thanks, Olivia. Thanks for having me.
So taking it right back to the beginning, where did the idea for NUW come from and where did it all begin?
So the origin story of NUW is in 2013, I spent time in India with an NGO called SUIS, Educational Development. And I was 19 at the time. I really had not learned about global issues or, the effects of global consumption or anything like that. So I was heading over to India, hearing about this market in Delhi where all of the high street brands that have pieces with small defects don't make it over to the West to get sold on the high street. So I was so excited. I was going to finish out the summer in Delhi, get a suitcase full of clothes, come home and have my college wardrobe sorted. And that's kind of the mindset that I was in before kind of mid 2013. Then in that April, there was the Rana Plaza building disaster. So it was a garment factory in Dhaka in Bangladesh that collapsed and over 1,130 people died. And that was kind of a global spotlight that was shone on the fashion industry. And so I was then kind of coming to, West Bengal, which was quite close to Bangladesh and, quite a similar region, and understanding that actually there was a lot going on with fashion. And I kind of didn't expect that to be how my lens would focus, but it did. And so when I was over there, I got the opportunity to just learn so much about what was actually happening in the industry and how this was really affecting people and the planet. You see a lot of rivers are polluted. You see, people that you're making friends with that are, short-term affected by all of our consumption. And so the kind of change for me was at the very end of the summer when I did eventually get to Delhi. I passed that market and obviously had no intention of going in, but it was just kind of this moment of reckoning. I could see all of these clothes and they were just wasted. They were getting sold for next to nothing and the brands are probably still making a profit on it. And all around you can just see the pollution. And that for me was kind of a big moment of change. But when I got home, the most frustrating thing that I found was, as a university student, access to sustainable fashion was treated as a luxury. And so it was very expensive. Or there was this concept that you needed to buy into sustainable fashion. And that to me just didn't fit. So really the search began of how do I lead a more sustainable lifestyle without having to completely remove myself from the fashion industry. And what I could see around me was just people shared their clothes with friends and family. And that was creating our own ecosystem. It was using what we already have. It was far more sustainable than ever buying something new. And if that concept could be scaled, then we could provide a real sustainable and affordable alternative to the fast fashion industry. And so that really just became the focus. And NUW has turned into both a borrowing platform where you can borrow things short term, but also a swapping platform, which it is majority of the focus is on now. So you upload a piece of clothing, members get a token for each piece they upload, and then they can then use that token to take a piece from the platform from themselves. So it's all about giving new life to the pieces in our wardrobe and using what we already have as a way to access more fashion and really leaving this kind of first-hand buy, wear, dispose behind.
That's amazing. And I love how you can see how much your mindset shifted over a period of time. Like, it's incredible that you can kind of pinpoint that focus changing.
Yeah.
What do you hope that NUW will change?
I would hope very long term it would disrupt the industry so much that the production of clothing would go down. So the real problem is that we are producing far more clothes than we need. You have 100 billion pieces of fashion that are created each year. And that means that every year, the amount of pre-loved clothing that exists in the world grows exponentially. And in order to reduce that production, you have to reduce the demand for first-hand fashion. And so what we hope with NUW is that people do not need to buy first-hand in order to feel that rush of something that's new to them. So I guess for our members, it's changing up your wardrobe really accessibly, really affordably, getting to wear new styles. But for fast fashion, what we hope is that it's a model that really competes with what they've built and forces them to change and forces them to produce less and create more value from the pieces that are produced over time. So we would like to see a big industry shift. We cannot use up our fine art resources to the extent that we are in making fashion. All of these fibers come from crops. There's so much water used in the production of clothing, so much chemicals used in the production of clothing, and these things need to slow down. So it's really about moving away the dependency on those means of production and forcing the industry to change.
I feel like there are so many people along the like supply and demand line that NUW could benefit. That who in your mind are you hoping that NUW will help, and who did you design your venture for?
So our, I guess, initial target market and our focus market and demographic is young women aged 18 to 35. So we really look at high street pieces as the focus. In sustainable fashion, a lot of the solutions skew luxury. And that's really because if you're reselling, it's better as a business model to resell higher value items because it bulks up the business model. In rental, it kind of needs to be luxury items because a lot of the question is, why would I rent something that I could buy for a very similar price? And so high street fashion really gets left behind. As a student, that's all I cared about. I didn't go into designer stores. I didn't go into my friends' wardrobes and ask about price or brand. I just was really familiar with my style, and those were the kind of things that I wanted to wear. We tried designer items on the platform, and people always swapped and shared high street items. So we really found, our core and what we go after is actually just really authentic to why it started. And it really, we feel, kind of tackles the high street industry head on in a way that a lot of the solutions don't really touch off, because it's a real change in the luxury space, but not enough at all is happening in the high street space, where a huge amount and probably the majority of the pollution is. So it's really young women because we're the highest consumers of fast fashion, and we, you have this kind of slight intergenerational change where millennials, so people who are kind of over the age of 24, will have a lot of kind of fast fashion from when they were a bit younger. They want to get rid of that and they want to pass that on and have a more curated wardrobe. So you'll often have them swap out quite a lot of their wardrobe and take less. And then you'll have younger people who are still in this, finding out their fashion identity, trying a lot of new things, experimenting. And they tend to be able to then swap with people who are a little bit older, sometimes get the benefit of getting higher value items that they may otherwise not be able to access. And the ratio of kind of giveaway to take is generally 1-to-1. So it's really focusing on the market that, grew up with e-commerce and fast fashion and are now super aware of the impact of the industry, but need an affordable way to make any significant or relevant change.
Honestly, I just feel like you just described my wardrobe and what I like doing with it. So I feel very like I fit into that box.
Yeah.
You touched a little bit on like the fact that you focus on high street and like why you do that. But we see a lot of even fast fashion brands claiming that they're sustainable and all of this. I'd love to hear a little bit more about like what makes NUW different from anything else out there.
Yeah, I guess there's kind of twofold. So there's how is NUW different from the fast fashion industry, and then how is NUW different from the solutions that are coming to make this fashion space more sustainable. So fast fashion brands or high street brands that peddle themselves as sustainable, it's generally greenwashing, which is essentially using sustainability terms as a form of marketing, whether or not they can actually stand over these practices, and if they actually have policy implemented. So the question kind of to ask yourself is, are you buying from a brand that has a sustainable collection within a entire store of unsustainable collections? And are you looking at a brand that changes their trends on a daily or weekly basis? If they then have a sustainable collection, they're still mass producing and overproducing, and they're not sustainable. So that's just kind of like the answer to the question very quickly. As a customer, is this brand actually doing right? Also, they're pushing you to buy more and more and more. So whether or not that piece of clothing is actually sustainable or is sustainably made, if you are not consuming it in a sustainable way, that is an unsustainable practice again, because you're just producing more clothes and then the kind of waste at the end of the day is pretty similar. So what NUW has people do is just reuse what's already in circulation. And regardless of whether it's been made in a sustainable way or it's a piece of fast fashion, wearing that over and over again. We always say the best revenge on fast fashion is just wearing the clothes, because that's the kind of worst thing they can hope for, is that you actually get real wear out of it. And so it's really just, we're taking all the good parts of fast fashion, which is access to a lot of variety really quickly, a lot of styles, and very affordably. And then we're taking all of that good stuff and then we're removing all of the bad stuff. So that's kind of the difference between us and fast fashion. And the difference between us and other players in the market is really, we don't do peer-to-peer rental. It has a bit of a barrier in terms of, you need to have high value items to rent out, and you need to have the purchasing power to rent those items as well. So brilliant for like one-time wear items, super fancy events, perfect for that. But on a daily basis, if you need to be changing up your wardrobe, it's not necessarily accessible for the rest of your wardrobe. And so in sustainable fashion, there needs to be kind of a broad set of solutions that ensures that everyone gets involved. So it's great for a certain demographic, but won't necessarily fit into high street. Also for resale, what we find is that resale has become very professionalized. So if you're trying to resell pieces, the people who do best on these platforms are those who have built clout, those who kind of run things as an actual shop, or vintage resellers as their full-time job. For more casual sellers, you can upload pieces, you'll put a lot of effort in, but you could be 7 or 8 months waiting for something to sell for, £5 to £20. And that has just become a bad experience for recirculating your wardrobe. You need to be efficiently getting things out of your wardrobe, and attaching the monetary value to each individual item reduces the likelihood that this is going to get out there in the world as fast as it needs to. So with NUW, the big difference between everyone in the industry is we take away the monetization of individual pieces of clothing. We use a simple token system, silver for high street, gold for mid-market and above. If you put too much effort into valuing items that people are already ready to give away, you are again just reducing the likelihood that this is going to go somewhere. And if the mission is to make sure that these clothes get out of wardrobes and into the hands of someone who will wear them, you need a process that is very frictionless. So when you're ready to part with something, that's it, that's gone. You're already emotionally attached to it. Once you have a token, you have the value that you need, or the currency that you need, to immediately get something that you do want. So it's really, we believe that this is the only thing that will work for high street, because across reseller platforms, and ThreadUp has a very good report on this, high street brands become the most difficult to resell, and they perform the lowest, whereas they perform the highest on NUW. So it's really just taking away any preconceived notions of how we can recirculate items of clothing, and developing our own trading system that can actually work for items that are sold at such a low value on their first point of sale that they actually undervalue the piece entirely. And so we need to bring that value back in a way that isn't tied to money, essentially.
You just hit on so many amazing and really useful points, especially I think for us as consumers, like the questions to ask ourselves, like before we sell or before we go into a shop and like look at the sustainable collection, like just really unpacking what that means and the context of it. So thank you. I think that's so helpful. And do you have any success stories that you can share about the impact you've had on any of your users?
Yeah. We would have quite a lot of members who are really into, you kind of have twofold. So you have members who are super into fast fashion and really don't know a huge amount about sustainability. And then you have members who are super into sustainability and aren't like that experimental in fashion. So we have one member, Sarah, who is super, she like does environmental science, really kind of understands what's happening in the industry, but never had like an amazing love for fashion. I think that was really because it's difficult to experiment when you want to be conscious, because you don't necessarily want to try things that may or may not work out, and then that's kind of wasted pieces. Whereas on NUW, which her wardrobe is now 75% pieces from NUW, that ability to experiment is there, staying true to all of the values that she has. So it's really nice to see those kind of total lifestyle changes that have happened to people just because of the platform that they use. And that's quite amazing to see when you've built something and you see someone show you their wardrobe and it's like, this is new, this is new, this is new. You're like, oh my God, that's amazing. And then on the other side of that, we have a member, Jenny, who was very like ASOS packages arriving every day. Her friend told her about NUW. She was like, wow, this is amazing. And really didn't know a huge amount about sustainability or what was happening. But as you go through the NUW process, you start to learn how much water and CO2 you save. And so when we did kind of a member interview catch up to try and figure out like how are users using the platform, what do they think of it, she said that it was so lovely to get a package that wasn't from ASOS and had like a note in it, and it was from someone. And she was like, that piece is so different to me than anything else in my wardrobe. And she's still definitely getting bits and bobs from high street brands that are coming through the door, but it's far less because she really is mindful of those packages as they come in, and it kind of means something different now that her understanding of how this work has shifted. But the most interesting thing for Jenny was that she had a piece that she had put on Depop, and she had it selling for £70. And she said people would come on and try haggle and get it down to like 40 or something. And she's like, no, that's a really good dress, and I don't want to sell it for less. But she swapped it on NUW because she actually said, I would prefer to swap this on NUW and give it to someone who I know actually genuinely really wants it, then sell it to someone who's like taking it off me and trying to like devalue the item completely. And so it's like seeing members and their sense of value changing for the item, and them preferring for this to go and have a good life than for her to feel like she's been hard done by giving a dress away to someone who like isn't, you know, is just trying to negotiate with her. And she's like, just
might
pay
wear it
the
once themselves and
it.
then oh.
Yeah, and then being like, fine, take it. And it's
Yeah.
like, you know, what kind of, that's not a community feel that you're
Yeah.
getting. So that was one of the biggest kind of changing points that we had seen, because the expectation would be that if you're really, really into fast fashion and your mindset hasn't changed at all, you will always take the value. But actually, the value had just totally shifted. She was so happy with all of the pieces that she was getting from NUW. She really wanted to feed back into the community as well, which I think becomes a really important part of the cycle for members. It's not just about what you take. It really is important for people to also take your pieces, and for you to feel that you're feeding into the community, and that, you know, you're really a part of that change. And there's a lot of positivity and really, you know, be empowerment of being able to be a part of the solution rather than just kind of, you know, passing through it, I guess. So that was those are kind of two great stories that you can see people's whole mindset is really changing, which is what we really set out to do. Like on top of that, there's, you know, thousands and millions of liters of water that have been offset and a lot of CO2, but I think it's the behavior change that is the most important to see, and kind of talk to members about that. So especially as a founder, you can like fundamentally understand what those changes look like and how they, if they are reproduced, how they could change and feed into your mission.
It's amazing. And I think the word you use there, community, is like so important for that behavioral change, because as you said, you bring back like these different people and who have different value systems, yet they're both gaining something from NUW and maybe interacting with each other in a way that they wouldn't have any other time. So that's amazing. Yeah. And so going back to like you as a founder, what's one thing, if you can say one thing, that you wish you had known at the beginning of your startup journey?
I think it was, and I don't know if it's necessarily that I didn't know it, but potentially that I just didn't act on it. And it was really, if there's anything that you don't know, which is probably 97% of building a business, are things that you don't know how to do or implement, find someone who knows it and just simply ask for their help. That was the biggest change. And I started building NUW. I'm really going for it probably 6 months or so before I moved to London to go on the BGV program. And when I got to London, I didn't know anyone. So I had to ask for help. Like I couldn't but do it with the help of other people. But when I was at home, I was kind of in my comfort zone. I felt awkward asking people. I didn't really know, you know, when you have no money as a startup founder, how do you ask for favors in a way that isn't rude or isn't taking advantage of people, or what's the expectation that they have? And there's all those things that go around in your mind. What I've learned is that if you ask someone for their help and they meet with you, the default is that they want you to succeed. And they are doing this because they have been helped in the past and they recognize the benefit of helping people. And so the intent is there. Ask them whatever it is that you need. Ask them for their expertise, for them to implement something, just for their advice. Those are all things that people are more than happy to give. And if they can't, they'll just say no. And that's also fine. And so everything moved so much quicker when I just realized that I don't have the answers to pretty much everything, but somebody else has them. So I just need to know what the answer is. And that gets you a lot further, a lot quicker. And you become better as a founder because you're learning to like delegate really quickly. And you're learning that although this is your baby, you do not have all the answers to figure it out. Like, and you're kind of doing yourself a bit of a disservice if you're struggling with certain areas of it, and you can become very self-critical if you can't move things forward. But it's, how could you can't be skilled in every department. You can't be someone in tech and also in business and also in design and also in marketing. Like, that's just that's such a waste of time knowing all these skills, so inefficient. So just surrounding yourself with people who can feed in is great.
Amazing. And what 3 qualities do you think make a successful founder?
I would say, firstly, it's just showing up. Like, majority, I genuinely feel the reason businesses succeed, and some don't work out, and that's also fine. But a business can only succeed if you just come into work every day. So like, there's loads of people who just decide that they just won't come in, and that's it. And like, fundamentally, it doesn't matter if the idea was great, if it doesn't matter. Like, days are going to be exceptionally tough. Like, you're going to cry loads. I cry all the time, and that's fine. I talk to my boyfriend about everything that's going on all the time. And you just like, you need people who will also tell you to turn up every day, and people who will say, you've been here 100 times before and every other time it's worked out, so you need to believe that it is going to work out this time too. But just being there is half the battle. If you're there, you can solve things. If you're there, you can keep going. But so just turning up. Secondly, I'd say just, I guess, the ability to decide what advice you should take and what you're happy to take. You will get loads of advice from loads of different people, and I used to take all of it, and I take it both personally and professionally, and I would feel that if they said this and that was their advice, they must know. It was a big change when I kind of learned there's always going to be feedback, but you don't always have to take it. Like, you can actually say, no, I actually disagree with that person. Like, and a lot of the time as a founder, you understand your business. Well, not a lot of the time, all of the time. You understand your business better than anyone. And there will be things that, investors say or mentors say, and they don't necessarily know your audience. They haven't used the product. They just don't know. And one big thing for us, as an example from NUW, was that nobody will exchange clothes if they don't get paid for it. And I thought that for a good 6 months. I was like, well, I don't know why these, old white men think that, but they must be right because they've done businesses before.
Yeah.
And then every person I talked to said, no, they don't want to do resale, from our target market, of people who had tried it. And then 6 months later, I was like, okay, I just need to listen to the users and our members and not take every bit of advice. So like, take the advice or whatever, but go back to the people who are actually going to use your product or actually going to buy into the concept. Ask them. They're the best advice. Like, doesn't matter what some random man thinks it is. So yeah, always feedback, don't have to take it all. And then lastly, I'd say it's just having something that reminds you why you're doing it. Because if you don't have a really strong mission, you just give up. Like, you really would. Building a business is incredibly tough. That's why, if it was easy, so many people would do it. And getting through those really tough times, and every new experience and every time you're out of your comfort zone, it's going to be equally as tough. You think it gets easier as you go on. It actually kind of gets harder emotionally. There's more at stake. There's more people involved. There's more expectation. And it's always hard to kind of push through those things. So for me, it's the True Cost documentary. It's all about the fashion industry and pretty much everything that's wrong with it. And if I am having a really tough time, just, you know, remembering why this is that I'm doing it, I'll just go back and watch that. And I think that's specifically relevant when you're doing things like fundraising, because you're spending a lot of time with the mechanics of the business, what other people's expectations are. You're thinking about money a lot. Like it's all of these kind of things that it's not the reason why you're doing it. And you can totally forget that within the moment. And when you're very deep in it, you're trying to prove that this can be scalable, and you're trying to prove, I think what BGV does really well is that they always kind of say, don't think of it as what are the projections for revenue, what is the projection for this. Think of it as, if you are going to affect and change the lives of millions of people globally, what do you need to scale to that point? And just coming back to that and coming back to your mission helps to realign you, because if you're constantly working towards a mission and there needs to be a solution, everything else will fall into place. And just kind of being able to come back to that as a founder quite consistently and quickly when you need to just helps relieve you. Just it just grounds you. You remember why you're doing it, and it's kind of easier to then go back to step one, which is just get up and show up the next day.
That's great. There's so many like practical tips and advice there for any founders who are at the beginning of their journey. This is so useful. And obviously, you know that we love NUW, but apart from NUW, are there any other tech for good companies that you really admire or want to shout out?
Yeah, so another B2B company, actually two. So absolutely love Birdsong. So they work with local seamstresses, a lot of women who are refugees and came over to the UK, and they make sustainable clothing collections. I just love Sophie, who's the founder, like so much passion, so much knowledge of the industry. You can see that every decision that they make within the brand is always made for the right reasons. Like I just never known a company to be so transparent and so wholesome, I guess. It's like you see where every pound you spend with Birdsong goes, and you see, you know, like I lived in East London for quite a long time, and it is directly affecting the local community. So that's been just, I think, an amazing brand to watch grow. And they did so much with size diversity and sustainable fashion, and have just really pioneered and kind of led in so much in that space. And then the other company that I really love is Fairphone. And I just think that I think what I learned from kind of understanding Fairphone, you know, on the face of it, it was, okay, this is a phone that's ethically made. But really when you, which I think is always interesting as you start to understand how a company scales, like really what they've done is they've built an ethical supply chain for phones. They've not just come up with a product because, you know, phones are phones, like to a certain extent, but it's the supply chain that is so hard to build, especially because so many of the resources that go into electronics are made in areas of a lot of conflict, like on the African continent. There's a lot that's involved in it. So it's really impressive to see actually to end with a phone made fairly at the end of the day. So much needs to happen. And if they can do this and they can help replicate that for other technology companies who, you know, are not putting in the effort to be able to make all of those decisions well, that's something that, you know, at a point can really shift things. And you kind of just see that it's really nice to kind of know the beginnings of a company, and that it started at BGV, and that it's something that can potentially very quickly make waves within the whole electronics industry. So I thought they were really cool, because I'd like heard about them before. I'd heard about both Birdsong and Fairphone before applying for BGV, so I was just so excited when you kind of see those and you're like,
Yeah.
wow.
You're on the program, like as well, and being part of like, that. You're not all part of the same community, you know, which is
and
really
founders
cool.
are so accessible. Like, for one thing, you don't realize when you're becoming a founder and just starting is like you kind of think that everyone is very far away, and that founders are inaccessible in the way that like a corporate CEOs are inaccessible. Founders are just so normal, and they're like really not like, until I imagine you kind of like exited your business or something, I imagine that you're not you never get out of the founder mindset that you're like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing, like I don't know where I'm going, I need to find someone else who knows this, I need to talk to another founder. So it's really nice to just know that actually everyone is very much on an equal footing, regardless of like what you've done and how much you can learn and how willing other founders are to help you, really.
Amazing. And I guess lastly, what's next for you and NUW, and how can people help?
So it'd be amazing if you love what we do and want to recirculate some of your pieces. You can download the NUW app, NUW, on iOS and Android, and you can follow us on social at We Are NUW. I guess for us as well, we are in the process of raising a seed round. So this will be, you know, our biggest round to date, really going to look at kind of scaling across Ireland and the UK and building out our team. So next step wise, that's really exciting. We have, you know, the mechanics done. We understand exactly how it's going to work. And now we just need to get it big. So that's kind of exciting in terms of the stage that we're at. So for us, it's really this kind of sense of accomplishment that we, after so long, have really figured out what it is that we need to fix this problem. And we're just so excited to start building that now. So I think we just can't wait till we close this round.
Yeah, sure.
And to like go headfirst back into the product and like all the fun bits of a startup, which is really building.
Well, thank you so much. That all sounds incredible, and good luck with the raise.
Thank you. Thanks
so
so
much. It was good to see you, Aisling.
You too. Bye.
Bye.